morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back or welcome to Sports All Week. In this video, we will be discussing my Week 7 NFL Power Rankings. If you're new here, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment telling me if you agree with my rankings or not. Without further ado, let's begin. Starting in dead last, and the only team who has not won a game this season, we have the Carolina Panthers. It's not even funny how bad this team is. I mean, every game they are getting demolished. Bryce Young has been underwhelming. Sanders has been awful. Their entire team just sucks. The fact that the only reason this team is remotely close in any games is because of Adam Thielen is horrifying. Have fun watching this dog pile for 11 more games, because I sure as hell won't be. In 31st, we have the Arizona Cardinals. This team did somehow manage to beat the Cowboys, but besides that, they have been awful. They have only scored more than 20 points twice and lost by more than 10 4 times. Connor was playing good before getting hurt, and that's really the only decent thing about this team. I don't see them getting any better, and right now, they're absolutely atrocious. In 30th, we have the Chicago Bears. All I heard this offseason was, "Oh, the Bears are going to be so good this year. Oh, Justin Fields is going to be a top 5 quarterback." All this crap, and through the first 7 weeks, that hasn't even been remotely true. Their offense has been terrible, Fields has been terrible, and it's just been embarrassing loss after embarrassing loss for this team. They have managed to win some games over the last few weeks, so maybe they will start to pick up the pace a little bit, but their first 7 weeks have been extremely disappointing. Next up, in 29th, we have the New York Giants. Can you believe that this was a playoff team last year? This offense and offensive line might be the worst I've ever seen. This team is allergic to scoring points. Daniel Jones has been awful, but it's difficult to play football when you're getting sacked at least 5 times a game. This team can bounce back, but if their O-line shows no signs of improvement, it's going to be very difficult. In 28th, we have the Denver Broncos. They were able to win 2 close games against the Bears and the Packers, but besides that, they have looked awful. I feel bad for anybody that stayed Broncos fans after that absolute monstrosity performance against the Miami Dolphins. How do you allow 70 points in a single game? It's unbelievable. This Broncos team has absolutely nothing to look forward to for the rest of the season. And honestly, they have nothing to look forward to at all. In 27th, we have the New England Patriots. This team is very hot and cold. They started off the season by playing 2 great games against the Eagles and the Dolphins. Then they beat the Jets, and followed that up by getting destroyed 2 weeks in a row. They had another close game, and then beat the Super Bowl contending Buffalo Bills. Everything about this team has been hit or miss, and you genuinely never know how they're going to perform. I do think they are playing better than their record shows, and I think they will finish the season off better, but I still think they are in a very weird place that I don't see them getting out of. In 26th, we have the Tennessee Titans. Besides their loss to the Browns, all of their losses has been close. Tannehill and Henry have been fairly underwhelming, but besides that, there hasn't been anything that bad about the Titans. They weren't expected to do very well this season, and they are making games somewhat interesting. I think they will continue in this path, still not make the playoffs, but at least you'll have fun watching some of their games. In 25th, we have the Green Bay Packers. After the first game and a half, people thought that the Packers were the real deal. Then they blew that game to the Falcons and have continued their mediocre play through the rest of the season. Watson and Jones being hurt has really hurt this team, but I don't think them coming back will improve the team to a point where they can make the playoffs. In 24th, we have the Raiders. This team is 3-4, but the only wins they've gotten have been beating teams lower than them in the standings. They also lost to the Bears, which automatically puts them lower on the list. Adams hasn't really gotten the ball very much, and Garoppolo has massively underperformed. Unless they start giving Adams the ball more and Garoppolo does literally anything, the Raiders season isn't getting very much better. In 23rd, we have the Chargers. Besides the Kansas City game, every single loss has been within a touchdown of tying or winning the game. Even with Williams out, this team is still good, or at very least better than their record shows. If they can just get some clutch touchdowns and defensive stops in the next coming games, they can easily bounce back and be right back in the playoff race. In 22nd, we have the Saints. Kamara coming back has definitely improved this team, but still not nearly enough to where they can make the playoffs. Carr has been decent, I guess, and Jamal Williams has been very bad since arriving in New Orleans. Michael Thomas is going to need to come up huge for this team now that Olave has been arrested for drunk driving, but even if he does, I think the Saints won't do very much for the rest of the season. In 21st, we have the Minnesota Vikings. This team has probably been the most disappointing team this season. Kirk Cousins has been balling out, and Jefferson was playing great before his injury, but this team still couldn't pull out the wins when they needed to. They did beat the Niners though, so maybe this will be the start of them winning again, but the start of their season has been disappointing to say the least. In 20th, we have the Washington Commanders. My ranking may say otherwise, but this team has been surprisingly not horrible this season. Actually, no, they have been pretty bad, now that I think about it. They started off 2-0, but have completely fallen off since then, losing to teams like the Bears and most recently losing 14-7 to the Giants in what might be the worst game up to this point. Howell has actually played fairly decent this season, but besides him and maybe a few others, nothing has really looked that good in Commanderland. Maybe next year. No, probably not. In 19th, we have the Colts. Richardson looked pretty good before getting injured, but Minshew has done pretty good in his replacement. Zach Moss did great in Taylor's absence, and Pittman has played okay. This team should be 4-3 if the refs called the game fair in that Browns game, but all in all, this season isn't going that horribly for the Colts. In 18th place, we have the Los Angeles Rams. This team started off strong with their win over Seattle, but has definitely cooled off since. Puka Nacua did great in Kupp's absence, and Kyren Williams has looked great. I highly doubt this team will make the playoffs, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see them playing meaningful games in the final weeks of the season. 17th, we have the Buccaneers. That last loss to Atlanta was tough, but they haven't been playing horrible this season. Baker Mayfield has exceeded most people's expectations, and their defense has been pretty solid. If this team can figure out a way to score more, I think there is a decent chance that they can make the playoffs. But until they figure it out, I can't see a world where they are playing games after week 17. In 16th, we have the Bengals. This team has finally started to heat up. Burrow and Chase look like themselves again, and their defense is starting to get some stops. With the AFC North being super competitive this season, it will definitely be harder for them to make the playoffs, but if they keep playing like this, there's no reason to think they can't do it. In 15th, we have the Texans. Who the hell expected this team to be here? They started out awful, but are now 3-1 in their last 4 games and looking pretty good. CJ Stroud has looked well, and Nico Collins has performed when called upon. I don't think this team will be a playoff team, but considering how they were last year, these first 7 weeks can be considered a success by everybody in Houston. In 14th, we have the Jets. This team is about where everybody thought they would be, except with Zach Wilson as their QB and not Aaron Rodgers. They have gotten a few good wins against teams like Philly and Buffalo, but also a few games where they should have done better. Wilson has done pretty well in Rodgers' absence, but he will need to do better if New York wants a shot at making the playoffs. 13th, we have the Atlanta Falcons, another team that nobody expected to be at the spot in this season. Robinson has been good, and Ritter has been a serviceable QB. Considering how weak the NFC South is, if the Falcons can stay above the 500 range, there is a strong chance they make the playoffs. Their schedule isn't too bad, so there is a good chance that this happens, but only time will tell. In 12th, we have the Buffalo Bills, another team who isn't in a bad spot by any means, but has still been fairly disappointing to start the season. At times they have looked incredible, but at other times they have looked like a bottom 5 team. Losing to teams like the Jets and the Patriots will matter come playoff time, but I still think Buffalo will do just fine and end up making the playoffs. In 11th, we have the Cleveland Browns. Beating teams like the 49ers without your starting quarterback definitely sends a message to the rest of the league that you are not messing around. The Browns have been doing great when you think of all the firepower they have lost to injuries so far. They shouldn't have won their last game against the Colts, but they still have been playing great nonetheless. If they can keep this up through the rest of the season, there is a decent chance that they can make the playoffs. Entering the top 10, in 10th we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. After that shambolic performance in Week 1 against the Niners, you wouldn't think the Steelers would be here after Week 7, but here we are. They have gotten clutch wins against divisional opponents, and at most times their defense has done a great job. Like I said with Cleveland, if they keep up their play and continue winning games by the end of the season, I think they will be in a playoff spot. In 9th we have the Seahawks. This team started off slow with their loss to the Rams, but have picked up the pace since. DK has been fairly underwhelming, and Geno hasn't been that great, but their team has still come together and grinded out wins when they needed to. This team will continue to improve, and I think they should easily make the playoffs. In 8th, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense was absolutely fantastic in the first 2 games, but has definitely cooled off since. They had a tough loss to the Cardinals and got destroyed by San Francisco, but they still have had a good season. CeeDee Lamb and Pollard should continue to get better, which in turn will cause Dallas to get better. This team is very good and they will easily make the playoffs. In 7th, we have the Jaguars. Ridley has been a huge help to this team, and even though Lawrence hasn't played his best, they are still in a very good spot. Their schedule is pretty tough coming up, but I think they can handle it and will finish the season at the top of their division. In 6th, we have the Detroit Lions. This team has been fantastic this season. Goff and St. Brown have done well, their defense has improved, and their rookies have done fairly well. They recently got destroyed by the Ravens, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a good team. I think they will continue to do well and finally make the playoffs. Entering the top 5, I have the 49ers. 2 weeks ago, this team would have been my clear-cut number 1, but after disappointing losses to Minnesota and Cleveland, they find themselves at number 5. Purdy has definitely come down to earth these last 2 weeks, and Moody hasn't made the field goals when called upon. Their offense has obviously been fantastic, but there is always room for improvement. This team is definitely a Super Bowl contender, and I think these 2 weeks were just an outlier. In 4th, we have the Ravens. Considering all the injuries this team has had, they have been fantastic to start the year. Flowers has been great so far, and Lamar Jackson is showing everybody why he won MVP a few years ago. If they keep this up, even in their stacked division, I think they will easily come out on top. Entering the top 3, I have the Dolphins. Their defense definitely needs some improvement, but their offense is the best in the league by far. Tyreek Hill might break the record for most yards in a single season, and Tua could very well win MVP. This team had a few slip-ups at the hands of the Eagles and the Bills, but they are obviously very elite and will continue to be elite for the remainder of the season. In 2nd, we have the Chiefs. Besides that first game against the Lions, they have been basically perfect. Their receivers can be better, but with Pacheco and Kelsey, that shouldn't be a huge issue. Mahomes is once again proving why he is the best quarterback in the world, and the Chiefs are once again dominating this season. Keep this up and they will easily earn a bye in the playoffs. Finally, in 1st place, I have the Eagles. There isn't a bad thing about this team. Awesome offense and defense, offensive and defensive line, and a play that is so effective there are talks of it being banned in the NFL. One slight hiccup against the Jets, but besides that they have been playing immaculate football. I think they will continue this dominant play and very easily earn a bye in the first round of the playoffs. So that does it for my Week 7 NFL Power Rankings. Would you guys change anything I said? Leave a comment and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the absolute world to me and I look forward to making more videos for you. Once again, thanks for watching and I will see you all again very soon.